It's Zach in the ATL, and here's the thing. TikTok food reviewer Keithley came to Atlanta, and many people felt as though he shined a spotlight on our city's food scene. I don't think I see it that way. I feel as though he actually provided a microscope. And in that microscope, we were able to determine a lot of moving parts and a lot of different organisms doing a lot of different things. For some people, those organisms that stood out being most worthy of scrutiny and pulling apart were the restaurants. But for me, it was a man. One man that really stood out as a prominent figure in Atlanta's food scene, and his responses set the internet aflame, but actually gave me a lot of insight into what it means to be a Black restaurateur in the city of Atlanta. And that man is Nigel Douglas. Nigel, welcome to the table.
Welcome, Zach. Thank you for having me.
Man, it's an
my
honor.
pleasure.
It is my pleasure to have you here. And throughout this whole entire experience with Keithley, prior to his visit, many people knew of the real Milk and Honey.
Absolutely.
They may not know the history, and I want to talk about that history some, but many of them did not know you.
Absolutely.
Now they have a name to associate to this restaurant that really is a definitive staple in historic College Park, but is a huge part of the Atlanta Black food scene.
Absolutely.
Nigel, who are you as a man, as an entrepreneur, and as a restaurateur in your own words?
I think just a normal person, and like you said before, the whole Keithley thing, I kind of private, kept it low key. I'm a businessman, went to school, graduated from NYU, started businesses from there. I continue to open businesses now. And I think, for me, it's about building people, not only myself. I love to see the people around me grow, right? And I think for me, that gets me excited,
One of the things that you revealed in the panel discussion that we were able to both participate in was how you grow your employees and how you invest in your employees with innovative 401k strategies and innovative things that you're doing to retain top talent at the restaurants and businesses that you own. What are some things that you are actively doing? Because I think that was really innovative. I think anybody out there who's watching this, any other Black restaurateurs, any other Black business people, any period of any race actually, would benefit from knowing how you are pouring into the people that make your restaurants work.
Yeah, I think traditionally the restaurant industry has always had a stigma of not treating their employees good, not making them feel like they're a part of the brand. And I think that was my philosophy, right? If you're gonna come and work for the real Milk and Honey, but more importantly, just not the brand, but if I'm a business owner, I feel like it's my social responsibility to make sure that my employees are established and they know that they're going somewhere. And that actually caused us to have a significant drop in retention, right? So a lot of my employees are there for 3-5 years that are there now. We don't have that, okay, you start tomorrow and then next week you're gone, right? We do trainings, right? We invest in them, and of course, in those financial securities. And some people might say, well, it's just a retirement plan. But who doesn't want a retirement plan? Especially in today's market when we don't know where things are going, like artificial intelligence, right? People need to have that sense of security decades from now, not just now. So we're thinking about the future and the future of our employees.
Why? Okay, where did that come from? Because that is something that's a little bit different, right? There's a lot of things that we're going to talk about that makes you different.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that's a philosophy from an entrepreneur, a restaurateur, an owner that is a little bit different. Like some people are wanting, they're only focused on on themselves and what they're getting from the business. Where did that come from inside of you? Like, what sparked that concern about other people? What drives that concern?
So at 17, I started a clothing line called Oniko Mara. But when I started that clothing line, I bought a business software that allowed me to write business plans at 17 in high school. In high school, I worked for American Express. I worked for the chairman of the board of the MTA, and that's kind of where that Mr. Chairman comes from. I always wanted to be the chairman of the board, right? And growing up, I've been lucky enough to be in business places. I've worked for the bank, in I've been a corporate trainer for a $1.2 billion company. I was the face of the company. So I've been in opportunities that have allowed me to see things maybe that other people have not had an opportunity to see. And, those are where the strategies come from. They come from my experience, right? I have a degree in business from NYU. So it's, I'm pulling it from all of my experiences. And so when you see those things happening, that's where I got them from. I got them from my upbringing, the stuff I self-taught myself, as far as my education as well. But I'm pulling from my experiences, throughout what I do. And that's just where I put all my strategies that I've learned back into my businesses. All right.
That, again, you're going back to, again, being 17 years old, then
Mm-hmm.
going to NYU. It's an educational foundation was laid that you created. Did your, what familial influences factored into that, right? Because when we look at our success, and we, especially as an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
and especially as a Black entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
did this come from family wealth? Did you have generational wealth?
No. So there was definitely no generational wealth. Both my parents are immigrants from Guyana, and none of them attended high school. So we didn't. I was the first person in my immediate family to go to college, so we didn't have it. So everything in the root of it all, I had to pull. I had to do it myself. And it amazes me. In today's societies, we want things easy. But I lived in Brooklyn. I worked in Queens. I went to NYU at night and then had to come back to Brooklyn at night. And I did that for 4 years. And then when I was working at the company that I worked for, that I was a corporate trainer, I wanted to graduate so bad, but they wanted to move me to Maryland. And I'm like, listen, I have to graduate. So I drove Friday from Maryland every weekend, took 2 classes on Saturday, and then drove back. And I did that for 6 months, just make sure that I could graduate.
And that's a profound part of the story, right?
Yeah.
Look, we hope this video is going to be up for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
As long as YouTube
Mm-hmm.
allows there to be a
Mm-hmm.
Zach and the ATL channel, and people are going to discover this year after year after year, and young people are going to see this, and they need to hear that story, because you're right. We're living in a time when people want microwave success, when they don't realize that it is a long, slow burn to really get there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you just said really speaks to that, and the sacrifices that you had to make to get to where you are now. So, you go from being a first generation American, your parents coming over from Guyana, and many people don't know Guyana. Many people don't understand that Guyana in and of itself, even today, is for many people, a very hard struggle to endure.
Absolutely.
And it's not a country where migration to the United States is easy. Like our Guyanese, our West Indian immigrants go through a lot to get here, a lot to get here. And so how did your family influences, in the Guyanese food and West Indian culture, how did that factor into your food choices currently as a restaurateur?
I don't think that played into it as heavy.
And that's why I don't get roti.
Yeah,
At the Real Milk and Honey, I would like roti there.
Yeah, but I think definitely, learning, being a part of that culture, you learn to, from your certain age, you learn to cook at an early age. So it's not like, you have to kind of what we call fend for yourself, at an early age. So you don't get a chance to be like, oh, my mom is going to make me meals until I'm 21, so that influence of having to do it on your own and learning and developing, I've had instances, I've had girlfriends in the past, they're like, how you learn to cook? I'm like, well, my mom taught me how to make rice, but then I took it from there, so I think just knowing that you had to create things on your own. And, even now in business, you have to create things on your own. Everyone's going to throw a formula at you. Everyone's going to tell you this is how it's done. But in actuality, what I've found in all of the experiences that I've had to pull from is really and truly, you need to find your own formula. You can take from everyone else, but you have to find the sweet spot and find a formula that really works for you. Because too many things are like, oh, do this and then you can get rich. Do this and the formula is guaranteed to work. But I really, truly don't believe in that. I feel like if you take certain elements from all over and you really refine it to your sweet spot, that's how you become successful,
Nigel, that's a lot. It's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
Here's the question: what is the formula? Because there are entrepreneurs who are out here who are struggling. You have created multiple businesses. You're launching new ones. We're going to talk about caviar soon, but you're launching businesses. You have them going currently. What is that formula? What can you share with our entrepreneurs out there who are looking at you as a model of success?
Okay. So I think, honestly, if I had to look back at everything and where I am now, one of the things that I really pride myself on being is resilient and adaptable. I think if you don't have the resiliency to be a business owner, then you probably shouldn't own a business. And I also think if you cannot be adaptable to constructive feedback, criticisms, tough skin, and if you can't be adaptable in any environment, you probably should also not be a business owner. So I think that for me, one of the core formulas that you need to have is having that resilience and that adaptability, right? And then the second thing is creating an atmosphere for the people who work for you to want to work for you, right? Because if you're a great boss, people will show up for you when you're not there, right? Because they're going to show up for you when you're there. Oh, the boss is in the building, they're going to do everything right. But what about the times that you're not there? So if you treat your people right and you discover things about them and you learn things about them and you bring that core value of knowing who your people are by investing in them, they stick with you and they want to see you win,
And they want to see you win. So when you look at even from NYU to running the 1.2, being the face of this huge organization, give me one key lesson that you learned in your matriculation through NYU, and then one key lesson that you learned running this corporation that has served you well today.
Never burn bridges.
Never burn bridges.
Never burn bridges. And actually, I'm just a plug, but we're going to be doing a concept called Bridges. And the reason I say don't burn bridges is because I also own a successful healthcare company in New York State. And I have nurses who have worked for me for over 20 years since I opened that company. So I've had people who I've worked for who now consult for me as a business owner 20 years later that I used to work for. So when I say don't burn bridges, because you never know when you need to cross back over that bridge. So if you blew it up, it's not there for you anymore. So when, a lot of people get upset and when things happen to them and they blow up and they get angry, but I found that you need people. And so anyone that's telling you that you don't need people along the way to success, to me, that's a lie. You need a helping hand every step of the way, right? There's been people along the way who's given me money. Nigel, we believe in you. And not small money, large sums of money, right? And then you're like, okay, I'm paying it back. And then they believe in you even more, right? So it's not burning them, for me, at least, is key, because you never know when you're gonna need to pull or walk back over across that bridge. And you may be able to help someone along the way that needed help. The people I used to work for that now consult for me, they needed help. I was able to do that for them because now I'm in a better situation, right? And so if I never created that bridge in the first place of what I call great relationships along the way, I would have never been able to pull from that, And I think that's so important in being a business owner, entrepreneur, and just in general as a person. Don't burn bridges if you don't have to, right? Everything is fixable, right? Everything can be solved. Everything has a strategy. Everything has a solution. People get too stuck on being one way and like saying, well, no, I don't want to work with that person ever again, right? Billionaires don't say that to each other, because if you need $1 billion and I can lend it to you, I'm going to lend it to you. And that's why the rich stay rich.
That's true, right? And that's one thing that many people often talk about is the lack of wealth in the Black community.
Mhm.
What do we need to do as a community from your perspective, as
Mhm.
someone who is contributing significantly to the wealth of the community,
Mhm.
to build better Black infrastructure within our community for wealth?
Yeah. And I think I touched on it a little bit when we were on the panel.
You did a great job. Yes.
I think honestly, like if, you know, we need to build better programs to allow people to significantly have access to the things that they need to be successful in their business, right? So if I have a great relationship with vendors like, Cisco, Bank of America, Chase Bank, we should be building hubs throughout the country, not just in one city or one town. We should be building these financial hubs where, you can go and access capital. You can go and access a marketing strategy. You can go and access social media strategy all in one hub where we have these subject matter experts all in one place that you can get the information and you can make a logical decision. Should I even get into this or not? Right. So sometimes we want to jump into it, and that's great. I commend anyone that wants to jump in and start, because sometimes you do need to do that to learn. I've had to do that to learn certain strategies, right? But I think honestly, the give back is not just giving money, but setting it up socially where we can be more responsible for each other by having these hubs and giving people more access to the community. That's what they need. People are smart, right? Especially the Black culture. And so that we're very creative. Like we've created most of the marketing over the last 50 years is built around us. We're smart, right? So no one can deny that. So I don't think it's just, access to money, because you can have money and not know what the hell to do with it, right? It's the access to the things to make the money work. And I think that really would be the strategic thing for us to, put into the communities and build from there. Mm.
I agree, right? That's something that, you're right. Like there's lots of emphasis from, democratic leadership at different levels of government around small business capital and the acquisition of small business capitals for Black entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
But there isn't a whole lot of focus on the training and the education and the personal development that goes along with getting the capital.
Yes.
So that is a huge need. And that's something even maybe to take back to our leaders to say, we need more than just the
Exactly.
capital. We need to know how to use that capital wisely and be good stewards
Yeah.
of the resources.
Because most people don't, right? Most people don't know you need an accountant. Most people don't know you probably should definitely have a lawyer. Most people don't know you probably should get your trademark and development and copyright and all this stuff done on the onset of your business, not on the back end, right? Those things need to be set up first, but people start businesses and then a year later, they're like, oh man, I should have had an accountant do this. Yes. Oh man, I need a lawyer to get this done. Now I'm someone's suing me because we didn't set up our legal paperwork correctly in the beginning. Oh, someone stole my brand because you didn't trademark it, you didn't copyright it in the beginning. So those are all the things that, besides money, that it's more strategic, and those are the things that we need to have access to make businesses more successful, right? You can get the money, but you can
Right.
get the money and then the money will just burn out. And then you're like, where did the money go? You didn't have the right setup strategy.
You didn't have
on
the
the on-
infrastructure in
Yeah.
place to use that money and make money from it.
Yeah.
And it goes. And that makes a lot of sense. So that's kind of like, some good insights of the past. And so like when we talk now about the present, in your own words, what was the Keithley effect to you?
I think I think it was needed. I think it was an emphasis on a lot of things, and it kind of is going back to what we're talking about right now. You have a lot of entrepreneurs who jump into the market. They want to open a restaurant, not necessarily having the refined tools that they need to run a restaurant, and it opened my eyes as far as what can I commit to doing more to support the restaurant scene. And I talked about having maybe a strategic hub in Atlanta and doing something, that way. We've been a very successful restaurant, since our conception in 2019. We've kind of cultivated that whole brunch scene, from the onset. And then from there, you saw a lot of restaurants come online, doing the brunch culture from since then, right? So just in a short space of time, we've had a mega surge of restaurants doing brunch in Atlanta. But then, it also left us to be more creative, right? Like, what can we change? What can we do better as restaurateurs to make the guest experience, what I call guest experience, more natural, more normal? So we looked at some of the things that were brought up, and it wasn't from Keithley, it was more from the people themselves.
Right.
And we looked at that and we said, you know what? Let's look at it and let's make some changes. I grew up taking constructive criticism, and I always talk about pulling from my experiences. So that for me was an experience, right? It was, let's look at it. Let's see what we can change. Let's see what we can do better. And for us, it was just constructive. It was like, hey, it was just an eye opener. Like, hey, maybe there are some things that we could do better, right? Being a champion on the block and everything is going well, you're thinking, everything is well. Sometimes it's not always well. Sometimes it takes someone to just point something out and say, hey, maybe you could just tap on this and do it better. I think for me, it opened my eyes to how impactful social media can be, especially when things are not truthful or hurtful, or people attack you. But like I said, in this business, in any business, if you are not resilient and adaptable, then you shouldn't be in any business. And I think for us, we were just resilient, and of course, we adapted to the criticisms, and we listened to the people, and that's all we could do. You're not gonna be able to win over every single person or idea, but I think if you listen and you collectively do the right thing, then you're fine.
You said a lot, and so I want to go. I mean, you said a lot, but one of the first things you said that stood out to me was how the Real Milk and Honey was doing brunch at a time and making brunch in the Black community at a time when there were very few other restaurants doing it as like the primary driver of the restaurant's focus. And that is your focus. What made you decide that brunch would be the focus for your, restaurant? And how have you seen that concept grow and be, I don't want to say copied, but imitated, innovated, gathered by other restaurateurs?
Yeah. And I mean, we love it, but for me, as well as my business partner Shauna, we sat at a restaurant about 2 years ago, and I challenged her, and we had a little dispute, and we were going back and forth, and I'm telling her, I'm like, so what does brunch look like 10 years from now? So at this point, we were doing brunch already. We've been doing brunch for...
This is like 2021, 22,
right,
21.
Right? So in the heart of, COVID and everything else was going on. But I said, what does brunch look like 10 years from now for us, right? The culture is like, there's a million brunch spots now, right? So what does that look like for us and being innovators? And we came up with caviar. And that's how caviar was born, because we said, you know what, if we're gonna continue to have a brunch feel but elevated, it has to be sophisticated for us, right? It has to be what that next level looks like for us. And I think you never fear competition if you're always looking to innovate, right? So if you're innovating, some of my good friends are restaurateurs. We call each other up, we support each other. There's no competition between us, because we're always innovating. And I think for me, I think that's another thing that we just really need to look at as a culture. Like, if we're going to support each other, just support each other. It's not a competition, right? If your restaurant is successful on the block and I open a restaurant right next to you, your restaurant should be successful, because what happens, then more people pour into that block, come visit it, because now it's a locale that they can visit, right?
And that's what you guys made happen in Historic College Park. Like, that's exactly what has happened on the restaurant row of Historic College Park with Virgil's and the Real Milk and Honey and
Nouveau opened up, right? And
Johnny's.
Johnny's opened up, and those were all after we opened.
They were.
Right. We were the original restaurant in that area. And so now you have Breakfast Boys, right? So it's like all of these restaurants are now open and are successful, and we're happy for that, right? And that's how it should be. I think if we just kind of nip that whole everyone's a competition thing in the bud, and some people won't agree with me on that. Competition is competition. You can be competitive, but you can also be strategic and love your neighbor at the same time, and you guys can grow together. Because like you said, we created that strip, right? The Real Milk and Honey created that strip on that block. Like restaurants then start popping up after. Everyone can be like that. Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, you took us from the present into the future. And that's where I wanted to go next. And you talked about caviar and this concept of elevation in the restaurant scene. So caviar is going to open in New York.
Correct.
When?
In Edgewater, New Jersey, first quarter of next year, 2024.
So 2024. And so the concept is elevated brunch.
Elevated brunch.
And what are some of the menu items that we can look forward to? Because some of us in Atlanta are going to be coming up. Now, I may come up for the grand opening. You give me that invite, I'll be on my way up. And so, what can we expect? What's on this menu?
You're definitely going to see some items that we currently have on our Real Milk and Honey menu that are, again, elevated, right? So you may see shrimp and grits, but those shrimp and grits may not be elevated, right? Where it may just be delivered to you in a different fashion. I don't want to give away too many secrets too early. But
the ops be listening.
Yeah,
they be listening.
I know.
If you listening, ops, go ahead and subscribe.
But definitely elevated. But I think strategically what's even important with that is that caviar has not always been accessible to everyone, right? Caviar is known as a more expensive, high, a high echelon of type of individual.
A high-end treat. It's a luxury treat.
Right.
We didn't see caviar until Alexis and Dominique Devereaux and Dynasty was arguing about caviar and burnt champagne.
Exactly. And that was a particular type of caviar too, right? So I think
beluga.
Exactly. So I think what we've done with the concept is just make caviar accessible. And we also have our online caviar delivery service as well. So you'll be able to actually purchase caviar through us. So we've worked with some sustainable sources to have farm raised caviar that we have that partnership with them. And so we private label it and we sell it online.
Is sustainability important to you?
It is.
I don't care.
Yeah.
But I'm also not in the industry. And you have three, beautiful daughters. Yeah. Grandkids probably coming eventually. I'll eat all the caviar I can while I'm alive. I don't care about the
I've had the fortune of spending a lot of time with a Michelin star chef who's actually mentored me in a lot of different ways. And he was the one who actually taught me about sustainability. And people, when they think about sustainability, they don't really think about it just in the terms that he actually introduced it to me.
So Edric, I'm excited to, I'm open to learning, make me recycle. Let's hear the sustainable.
I actually had him visit the Real Milk and Honey, and he must have walked past a refrigeration door that was open and the freaking light was on, and he almost flipped the lid. He was like, Nigel, why is this open? Why there's like, you're not only are you losing money, the light is on, no one's looking at it. And so he taught me sustainability that way. He was like, you're losing. And so from just that little thing, we have been more conscious about sustainability and how we approach the restaurant industry and the future things that we're gonna do because it is important. And I think everyone can be taught it. It just needs to be taught in the way that we understand what sustainability is.
So one thing that I wanted to know, the Keithley visit garnered a lot of viral buzz. Did it impact the bottom line of the Real Milk and Honey?
I mean, it didn't. We didn't see an increase in business. We didn't see a decrease in business. You know, you're talking about a multi-million-dollar a year restaurant, right? Our brand is strong. We've always had a brand. So I don't think that the true people who knew who the Real Milk and Honey, was prior to Keithley was like, no, that's what the internet is saying is no way that's true. Like, we go there all the
Most of
time.
your clients had no clue that this even occurred, and they kept it moving.
They kept it moving, right? And like I said, most people who did know who we were, like, no, you guys got the service is great. I think for us, we looked at it from a corporate standpoint. Let's see what are some internal things that we can maybe change, like some of the rules. We took the feedback on that. We actually got rid of it completely. And I think what people just didn't understand about that is every restaurant has a rule. There's nice restaurants that I want to go to that I'm about to spend $1,000, and they say, Mr. Douglas, you can't come in there with a hoodie, but we'll lend you a jacket. So I think every restaurant has rules, but I do think how the rules are presented and how people perceive them can have different aspects.
So you live in, you're in New York and Atlanta. Those two cities.
Most people think I'm in Atlanta though.
But it's those two, right?
But those are the two cities, yeah.
Who has better food? Tell the truth.
New York, and I only say New York because, Chef Harper and I, we sat about I want to say like a year or maybe even 2 years ago, and I went to visit him at Toast, and I'm like, Chef, it would be nice if Michelin was here, in the city of Atlanta. And I only say that because the city of Atlanta is just at the pinnacle of growth, right? Where New York you can walk a block in New York and you're talking about multiple restaurants on one block, right? You can walk in a 3-block radius and you'll bump into like 10 pizza stores. So Atlanta just isn't there as far as the inventory.
And the accessibility right now.
Right? So that's why, we need those restaurants coming online. But I feel like those restaurants coming online, we as the older restaurateurs who've been in the game for a while now need to really look at those new restaurants coming in line and give them a better support system so we can make Atlanta the New York and other great cities that you go to eat, like Chicago and LA, right? So Atlanta can get there. I just think that we're not there yet, again, because we don't have the inventory, and I think we've not created the sustainability of bringing all these restaurants online so fast and doing it well at the same time,
Right, and you guys have, you've defied the 5-year, because it'll be 5 years this upcoming year, or have you already hit the 5-year mark?
Yeah, we're here.
Right, you're here.
Yeah.
So I know 2019 to 2023 is 5 years.
Yeah.
It just, the question is now, like, you've beaten the odds. You sustained as a restaurant in the city of Atlanta. Most of our restaurants don't make 5 years, and I want to say 90% of our Black-owned restaurants and ventures don't make it in the city of Atlanta. What has been your secret to success?
It really goes back to, I think what has been the key is just really the investment in the people that work for us. I think without your people, you're nothing, right? So if you don't have the right management, if you don't have the right talent pool to pull from, right? Because you can cook great food, but if your service is not great, then you're just gonna, right? Or you could have great service, but then you could have bad food. So it could be like a vice versa effect. But I think if you have a really good control on all of those, I think that's really the key to success, right? But most importantly for me, and being successful in that retrospect of how I look at it, it's the people that I've developed along the way that I've inserted into the restaurant that make us successful. Without those people, we wouldn't be here.
So one thing that Frank said on the panel was that it was hard for him to get top talent to work in his restaurant. That a lot of the top talent would prefer to not work in a Black restaurant or a Black-owned restaurant. Have you experienced that, or has that not been a part of your story in terms of getting the quality staff that you need to make this restaurant succeed?
So for me, I think honestly, I don't really look for someone to have necessarily the technical skills that we may need them to have right away. We actually hire based on attitude, right? So if you have a great attitude and you're coming in bubbly, guess what? The technical stuff I can teach you. I can't teach you how to show up and have a great attitude every day. That's the hard part. Because if you have to come to work and you know, as a manager or owner, and you have to tell someone, you know, smile, have a great attitude, you've already lost, right? But if I have to then teach and show you the technical stuff of, you know, this what goes in, these are the ingredients that go in, right? This is how you measure your food cost. This is how, if I have to teach you the technicals, I can teach you that, but I cannot teach you how to have a great attitude. And I think if we focus on just finding the right attitude and not necessarily working on bringing someone in who's coming from a restaurant that's used to being a certain way and they want to run it a certain way. Your restaurant is your culture, right? You run it the way you want to. But I think if we focus on just bringing in the people and the right talent with the right attitude, a lot of my managers who've worked for me now didn't have the experience that they had. We taught them to get there, right? We've developed them to get there, but they had the right attitude
as they launched.
Right.
So for you know, anyone watches they've never gone to the real Milk and Honey. First off, what's the difference between the real Milk and Honey and Milk and Honey? And when they come, what do they need to order?
Well, we've gotten a lot of coverage on our shrimp and grits, so you want to definitely get that. And then we just launched the Chairman's seafood tower. You definitely want to try that. It comes with
can't afford that.
It comes with a bottle of champagne.
Can't nobody afford that.
They can afford it. You 3-4 people. You guys think
it's the holiday? I don't know. It's a grip. But you want to try that. You know, really, all our food is great. It's really made with love in there. And you feel that when you eat our food, you feel that it was made with love, right? The ingredients, the freshness of the food. We really pride ourselves on the consistency from since the time we opened to now. Our food has been consistent, right? It's you know, you're gonna always have your humps and your hurdles and stuff like that, but I think you just have to really focus on keeping your food consistent, right? You don't ever want your guests to come in and be like, you know, this is not the same way the grits taste last week. You know, it's watery. You don't want that. You want it to be consistent, right? And truly, the difference between the real Milk and Honey and Milk and Honey is that. So when I started the business, I started it with Chef Sammy out of DC that had Milk and Honey. He came to Atlanta and tried to launch a Milk and Honey, I think apparently with some other venture partners. That didn't go well. They kind of ran with the Milk and Honey part of it. And so when we opened in 19 and we sat and we came up with the name, the real Milk and Honey, because technically we were the real Milk and Honey. That Milk and Honey wasn't based on him and his ideas, his recipes.
It was his recipes and strategy. 9-day difference.
And not a good difference.
Right.
And I want to say and clarify, because now I'm gonna tell you, with all the viral buzz, the one thing that really, you know, that I just really wanted to clarify, and this is known, I'm a food reviewer and I'm known for my honesty. The truth is the truth, and that's what I tell it. The Milk and Honey is not good. It's not good. I've eaten there twice, and both times it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. This was before I was doing food reviews on TikTok, but both times it was pretty bad. Now, he can't say that about a peer or restaurant, you know, but I can. You know, literally, I felt like they gave me white bread with peaches on top and called it French toast. It was pretty bad. So the two are not connected. And some people were like, you know, I think the owner of that restaurant even came out, well, it's not our restaurant. Well, you know, no, it's not your restaurant. Like, you know, but it seemed like that was a point of pride. But to me, it would be the opposite if it would have been confused with the real Milk and Honey, because recipes are 9-day difference. So that's the big difference in the two. Do you guys also own the one off Western Chapel?
No. That's all them.
That's the other bitch, because I haven't been to that one, because I was like, I don't think that's the right Milk and Honey. I think that's the wrong Milk and Honey. I'm not trying to eat, you know, light bread with peaches on top. I want to have some real French toast, or as you guys do, some real fried biscuits with the peaches and the vanilla cream. Now, that's what
the original.
That's my favorite.
The original, you know, Chef Sammy's. recipes, right? So that's why the food difference is different, right?
And it's night and day.
Yep.
Well, Nigel, this has been for me a pleasure. And I'm so glad that you could come and sit down and join me at the table and really, help introduce you, the man, the Nigel Douglas, to everyone who knows and loves the real milk and honey. Any final words for our guests?
Zach, I just, I really, since you and I connected in the panel discussion, you've been great. Thank you for having me. This has been a great discussion. And I think for you, you got to know me from them. And I think you wanted people to kind of know me as well, because no one kind of knew me before the whole Keithley thing. I'm a wealth of knowledge. And I think one of the things that the takeaway that I've never been a one to foster information that I didn't want to share with my peers, right? That's why, I go by the chairman.
Huge.
Yeah, that's why people know I'm always trying to bring people together. So if you know me, you know that I'm always trying to figure out where are we going as a culture? Where are we going as the next level? I'm always thinking that way, right? And I really want to leave young entrepreneurs with something that over I would say the last decade and a half that I've really learned. There is no actual block. There is only strategy. You sit and you figure out
strategy, how you get over the block.
Exactly. Because a lot of people get to the point where like, man, I can't. Where am I gonna make it? I'm gonna just leave with a story. So when I started my healthcare company, there was one time I couldn't make payroll, and I had to sit there and call. I thought the business was done at that point. I sat in the office by myself. All the employees went home, and I'm like, damn, what am I gonna do? And something came over me. A spirit came over me. It's like, listen, you're not done. You sit there, you call every single nurse that works for you, you tell them what's going on and see what happens. I sat there by myself in the dark room with the phone. I called every single nurse, and you know what they said? Nurses that still work for me to this day, they was like, we got you. We got you. We can wait. When you get it, you give it to us. Never quit if you start something that you want passionately. Do it until the strategy changes 1,000,000 times, but change the strategy. It's not over.
It's not over. And you know what? Here's the thing. You probably thought you knew Nigel Douglas from 7 seconds, or 7 seconds of TikTok virality. I can't even call it 15 minutes. And in that, I think that we've learned a lot. We've seen a man who is successful, but also humble, but humble in the right way. See, many people mistake Scorpios and assume that we, because I'm one too, are arrogant. But what it really is that we're confident and we're assured. Some criticisms aren't worth responding to. Some criticisms aren't worth defending, because we know who we really are and we know what we really stand for. Regardless of what everyone else may think, we know the truth. And I think that's the thing that you just take away about Nigel Douglas. This is a man who not only stands on business, but he runs them, and he obviously runs them well. Nigel, thank you so much.
My brother, I appreciate you. Love it.